On this edition of Somerville Neighborhood News, learn how a Union Square institution is helping homeless women and meet one lady who just might teach you a thing or two about homelessness. Hear what folks in the square think about recently announced building plans. Check out the Somerville High School drafting class. Hear how and why some projects in the city will soon benefit from a $2 million fund. And get the latest on Lincoln Park renovations. All this on Somerville Neighborhood News.
Hello and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. Today is March 10th, 2015. I'm Justin Schreier. Somerville Neighborhood News is your bi-monthly newscast and online source for multimedia news. It's a community service production of SCATV created by staff, interns, and your neighbors. We bring you the news every 2 weeks on Channel 3 and on our website, somervilleneighborhoodnews.org. We begin right here at Union Square. Did you know that just across the way every night, 42 homeless women have a warm place to sleep and a good hot meal? St. Patrick's Shelter has 32 emergency beds for women and another for women who are trying to transition from homelessness to having a place to call their own.
The reason why I'm in a transitional program is I lost my full-time job in 2009, went on unemployment for 2 years. It wasn't enough to keep my apartment where I lived.
Transitional program is a working women's program. They have to work at least 30 or 35 hours a week, and they can stay in that program for up to 2 years. It gives them the opportunity to put things back together. You know, before women become homeless, there's a lot of loss. It's not just your loss of your house. Sometimes it's preceded by loss of your health, loss of your job, loss of, a stable family situation. It's not necessarily just, oh, well, we'll put you right back into housing and you're going to be okay. And they have to save 2/3 of their income, and that's towards future housing costs. People just not being able to make ends meet sometimes. Many of them are working in hourly wage jobs, and they're making either minimum wage or just above minimum wage, and that's extremely difficult to find housing in the Somerville, Cambridge market. Many of the women who, even though they're working, are waiting for some form of subsidized housing, and those wait lists are very long. It will be, 3 to 5 year waiting. So that's the day you become homeless. You've got 3 to 5 years to wait for a subsidized unit.
I think people don't realize the situation because I know in my own family when this happened to me, everybody was like, wow, and I said, well, this is what happens when you lose a full-time job due to a recession, and I got caught up in the recession, and I was on unemployment. I did the extended unemployment, and that ran out. So, I mean, once your money runs out, you have to make adjustments in your life, and that's what I had to do. I was an automotive accountant for Toyota. Now I work for Panera Bread, and I'm a cashier, associate, barista. I do prep. I do anything. And I work about 30 to 35 hours a week.
We have the 10 women in our transitional program are all working. We had 11 women just recently in our emergency program who were working. So 11 out of the 32 emergency beds were for working women. There was a whole culture that would say, oh, well, people choose to be homeless. No one would choose this lifestyle. There always seems to be, some precipitating factor, whether it's substance abuse, mental illness, it could be divorce, or it could be sexual assault. Many women have trauma histories that have led to them not being able to maybe function as well as you or I. If you walk down the streets of Somerville, I don't think anybody sitting on a bench over in Union Square would be able to go, oh, she's homeless, she's homeless, she's homeless. Most of the women who stay here, you would walk right past them on the street. and you would not know that they were homeless. Many things can happen in one's life to turn it around and very quickly.
I just really want a small apartment, you know, that I can afford with my job now. And just, I really want to entertain my children and my family. So I have like just a living room and a kitchen and a bedroom, you know what I mean? I just want a small apartment. And I think that's it.
About 500,000 people are homeless here in the United States. Half are in families and 9% are veterans. According to St. Patrick's, 90% of the women who go through the transition program end up getting their own place to live. Next, we wanted to know what people around Union Square thought about the recently announced redevelopment plans for the two properties on either side of the future Green Line station on Prospect Street. The development firm US2 said they are planning on putting up buildings that might be 5 stories or more, with a hotel and about 900 apartments for millennials, people who are between the ages of 20 and 34. The Somerville Journal just wrote a strong editorial opposing the plan. What do people around the square think? Well, I went to ask a few. What do you think about the Somerville redevelopment project?
Well, I think that the city needs to be very careful in allowing the right developers to come in and to keep control over what is going to be developed, because history and examples can be sought out and looked at in various cities that corporations just come in and they make all their money and they leave. And the people that actually live here and really want to enjoy it and have been thinking that this is going to be good for them economically and good for them to have a better neighborhood, find out that in the long run it isn't.
I would say that I would want to know more about it. I would want to know what their goals are in creating this project. I would want to know what they have thought about in terms of ramifications to the area, in terms of keeping the area as affordable as possible, diverse as possible.
Frankly, we're worried about getting pushed out, the rent's raising, and the parking's already a nightmare. We're worried. We're a nonprofit. I'm paid for 35 hours, I work 70, and members contribute. That's how we survive. I don't think we can afford a rent increase. We love Somerville. I work and live in Union Square. We don't want to be pushed out.
Well, I've only recently heard about it. My opinion just about how I feel about any and all commercial development or redevelopment opportunities here in Somerville, which is I would prefer there were a community process by which to equitably address resident concerns, make sure there's a sufficient amount of affordable housing units within these apartment rentals, and also just to make sure that those abutting neighbors have a process to either rebut, participate, in order to make sure that doesn't affect their living abilities.
Now here's some good news for a lot of buildings, parks, and schools who have been hoping to get some funding for important projects.
After a year of deliberations and many late nights, on March 4th, the Community Preservation Committee voted to recommend about $2 million worth of Community Preservation Act grants.
All in favor? Any opposed?
The cash comes from a 1.5% property tax surcharge and from matching funds from the city and the state. In 2012, Somerville became one of 158 cities and towns in Massachusetts to adopt the CPA.
We spent from 2012, when it was passed, through tonight, really creating the process by which the city as well as private organizations can seek money for affordable housing, for community preservation in historic resources, as well as the creation and preservation of recreation and open space.
This year, Somerville had over $4 million to give away because it has 2 years' worth of funds. The Community Preservation Committee, made up of representatives of City Hall, boards, and of regular citizens, considered 15 proposals.
What excites me about this legislation and the opportunity here in Somerville is that this is a way that all of us, through a very small contribution of our taxpayer funds, can really have incredible impact across the city in areas that are generally hard to fund and have sustainable impact.
Okay, Prospect Hill Tower renovation. We discussed funding it in full, $500,000.
Proposals came from private as well as city entities, like this one from planning.
Planning Division for the City of Somerville is proposing to hire a consultant to prepare a National Register nomination for the American Tube Works Company complex. For a small cost of bringing on a consultant to prepare the form and simply submit it to the state or to the National Park Service, that puts all of these, that gives eligibility for all of these buildings to utilize these tax credits and just make the rehabilitations more feasible. And that's going to have a direct economic impact on this area, and especially along Somerville Avenue and directly within Union Square.
Another request came from the Historic Preservation Commission.
The proposal is to actually try and fix up and repair, rehabilitate the tombs that are still in pretty tough condition over here. What we're doing here is really trying to preserve some of Somerville's history, which I think benefits everybody in the city, knowing that in fact that we're taking care of our forefathers and that the cemetery as a whole is well maintained and is a quiet, relaxing place to be.
The commission only requested money to fix one tomb, but the committee decided to up the grant.
We got a request for $17,500, which I believe will only really do one tomb, is my understanding. Do, if we so choose, have the money to fund Milk Row, the $48,000 for the most pressing tombs, as well as the $92,000 needed to do all six.
A general priority that said we use the funds strategically to leverage other funds or in-kind contributions.
Sure.
So, you know, but I certainly don't do them one at a time.
Does anybody have a problem meeting in the middle at 48.3 to do the three most pressing?
Great.
I asked to serve on this committee as a member of the planning board because I think it's important that money that's raised by the community be given back to the community in ways that really benefits them in the maximum capacity that the money can authorize. All in favor? Any opposed?
I volunteer my time for this because I think that having committed members of the general public be part of the process, be a central part of the process of determining how this money that is our shared money is going to be spent is really, really important.
The committee also recommended $200,000 to help pay for some of the renovations that are really needed right here at City Hall. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
To find out which projects got funded and for how much, go to somervillema.gov/CPA. Now let's hear what's in this week's Somerville Journal.
Hello. This week in the Somerville Journal, we'll have coverage of the public hearing on the proposed new zoning code, coverage of the design charrette for Union Square, and a profile of one of the new school committee candidates. You can always catch us online at wickedlocal.com/Somerville, follow us at Journal on Twitter, and get in touch with me at 617-629-3385 or datkinson at wickedlocal.com.
Now here's another video from the Somerville High School video class.
Somerville High's vocational program has over 10 shops today. However, one class isn't as well known as the others. We asked the members of pre-engineering and architecture, or drafting, why people should take that class.
People should take drafting because we have a very unique opportunity where you get to actually choose from many, many different career opportunities, including like architect, mechanical engineer, civil engineer, interior designer, and all of these careers are great college opportunities, great career opportunities where you can make a lot of money and also just have really interesting jobs where you get to design and build anything on the really cutting edge of technology.
Being in a vocational class is really good because it prepares you for the real world. I prefer that rather than academic class, so I highly recommend taking vocational.
I think it prepares me well enough for the future. I'm not interested in taking this career in the future, but I'll always use this as a backup plan for worst case scenarios.
Although not well known, the work they do in this class not only contributes to the school, but to the town as well. Dan Bendel tells us the work he teaches to prepare the students for their future.
The work the students do when they come into drafting is first they learn how to use all of our different programs like AutoCAD, SketchUp, and even things, 3D programs like Revit Architecture. And we learn how to draw on them first, and then as soon as possible we actually get everybody into designing projects. So whether it be you're designing your dream house or designing a new robotic assembly, our goal is to get you into being a great CAD user, which is computer-aided drafting, and then actually be able to get you to design things.
If they need me to design something, like if they say design a park, I'll design a park. If they ask me to design a building, I'll design a building.
It taught me how to use AutoCAD and many other programs, as well as learn what are the basics in engineering and architecture, and all the basics I need to know. I need to excel myself in my career for the future.
So for students here, and the real reason why we'd like to take kids in and why they stay interested is because this program is really based around the individual. While we do group work, it's really about getting you to the level of being a good drafter, a good designer, and then hopefully being able to make you an expert before you go off to college in your choice of field of engineering.
Last, we end with a story about the plans to renovate Lincoln Park and some of the city's playing fields.
Plans for renovating Lincoln Park and its playing fields took a step forward on February 24th. Discussions have been going on for almost 3 years.
I know that people have been here for many of the previous meetings, but we are actually going to shape this park now.
The city hired Weston and Sampson for $325,000 to do the design. The firm has done other parks in Somerville, like North Street Veterans Park and Albion Park. Architect Sherry Ruane is a Somerville resident.
There's been a lot of thought already put into this process by everyone in this room and others that couldn't make it. So we respect and appreciate that and are looking to leverage what's already been discussed.
During the meeting, the architects ran through many different aspects of Lincoln Park and also asked the audience to vote on various questions.
Are you satisfied with the condition of the playing fields at Lincoln Park? Anyone else?
That answer was no surprise.
As we look at this field, and we know that this is a really contentious part of the park, it's a huge footprint as it relates to the overall park. It has a lot of use. And we want to make decisions that are in the best interest of the entire park.
The playing field at Lincoln is one of 11 fields that a study recently determined are being overused and poorly maintained. Last year, the city set up a task force to decide what to do about the problem. A top request from the committee was that the new recreation director oversee scheduling for the fields in order to prevent overuse. Another was for more and better maintenance. Alderman-at-Large Mary Jo Rossetti chaired the committee.
Now that the Rec Commission has been hired, we are anxious to hear. She was hired, I believe, in November, so here we are, February. As one alderman, it's my opinion, she's had some time now. We need to get back together and see what work she has suggested, what sort of combined meetings she's had with the DPW department, preparing for the spring and summer seasons coming fast and furious.
The committee also recommended that Somerville renovate many parks and gain management control of 2 state parks, Draw 7 and Foss.
The commission actually invited the mayor back to the commission's meeting one evening to hear from the mayor himself where he was as it stood with DCR and Draw 7. And he gave hope to the committee that he gave his word that he was having serious discussion with DCR.
But DCR Chief of Planning Joe Orphant said Foss Park is not being discussed.
There's no active discussion on that I'm aware of, but obviously we're always looking for creative and cooperative models for joint park management. We do that with other communities. We do that with Somerville, with Dilboy. So it's certainly something that you know, we're prepared to explore with the city. It's not something that's on the table right now.
And with only about $5,000 in its capital budget for Foss, the state can't afford to do any renovations there either.
Beyond ordinary maintenance right now and paying attention to that, we don't have any immediate development plans for Foss Park, but it's a park that definitely needs a conditions assessment. We need to better understand, we need to take a look at how we're permitting it, who's using it, get a sense of the intensity of the use, and try to develop a plan to address that.
The state and city are discussing renovations to Draw 7 Park, which is part of the Mystic River Park system.
So one of the things that we're going to be looking at with them is how we can get to perhaps explore artificial turf fields, if they make sense there, if there are ways to do that, what it's going to cost us. It's several $1 million. We need to get to that point. And we need to have a public discussion with a larger community about that in Somerville and from the neighboring communities that also use that.
Right now, Lincoln Park Field is covered by snow, but in just a few months, kids will be out there playing on a field that's pretty beat up. Will the new design team recommend that that field become artificial turf? And once the renovations start, where will the kids from Argenziano and all those soccer teams play while the field's out of commission? And what about the other playing fields in the city? We're going to stay on top of this complicated story. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
So Jane, you've been following this for some time now. What's next for Lincoln?
Well, the city and the design team say they're going to call another meeting in about 6 weeks, and they'll have 3 different versions of the new park, and folks are supposed to react to it. Construction could start next year, unfortunately not before. The renovation will cost several $1 million. Once it starts, that field will be out of commission.
What about Draw 7 Park? Will that get fixed up soon?
Oh yeah, that's the little park over behind Assembly Square. Well, they've got about $500,000 ready to spend on that park, and that will be used for design and to pay for the public meetings. DCR and City Hall hope that that kind of thing can start this summer or fall, but the park won't actually see any big changes.
And will the city be spending more money on maintaining the existing fields, as Alderman Rossetti's task force recommends?
Well, I recently asked officials about that, and they said that the city is going to consider upping the budget for maintenance and also for maybe fixing up Foss Park a little bit for fiscal year 2016, which starts on July 1st.
Wow, so it seems like this spring and summer, well, we're stuck with the same playing fields as last year.
Unfortunately, that's the situation. But the new director of recreation and her team hopefully will be able to improve scheduling so that the Lincoln Park field isn't used quite so much.
Jane Regan, thank you for that report. This is a top issue for teams and parents. Well, that's it for tonight. We'll be back on March 24th at 7 p.m. on Channel 3. In the meantime, you can watch and read our news stories at somervilleneighborhoodnews.org. And check out our Facebook page, SCATV SNN, or share your favorite segments, or tweet us at SCATV SNN. We welcome you to get involved with Somerville Neighborhood News, become a reporter, or just send in your ideas. Call us at 617-628-8826 or email us at news@scatvsomerville.org. I'm Justin Schreier. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you around the neighborhood.